See Hannity last night? Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison of Minnesota unleashing an angry spiel on Sean Hannity's show last evening right here on FNC, attacking Hannity's coverage of the budget plan that President Obama proposed and signed into law, which Congressman Ellison then denied. Here's part of the segment.
You, by the way, are inaccurate when you say that the president is to blame here. He's not. It was the Republicans in August 2011 said that they were going to cause the American economy to default on debts we already acquired unless they got deep and substantial cuts. And we ended up with a downgrade because of what the Republicans did. And after that, we set up this thing called the super committee. When all the Republican members on that super committee had already pledged to Grover Norquist they would not raise revenue, only do cuts. And then after it failed, as it always was going to, we ended up with sequester.
Let me ask you a question. I've given you plenty.
You said I could rant, and I am.
I've given you plenty of time to rant, Congressman.
Do you have a question for me, sir?
Yes, I do. All right. Now, first of all, it was Max Baucus and it was Bob Woodward that said that the president requested the sequester, point one. Point number two, my question to you is very simple. Barack Obama, because you said that what he said is true.
The Budget Control Act was forced down the American public by the Republican Party. Sequester is a provision of the Budget Control Act.
Relax.
The Republicans are responsible for the Budget Control Act, which contains sequester.
I know you're a broken record. Now let me get you my question.
You're a broken record.
Okay. Is it immoral to put 16 and a half? I'm immoral? What did I do that's immoral? I didn't do anything that's immoral.
You say things that aren't true.
Give me one example, sir.
Well, to try to say that it is the president's fault and he is to blame is wrong, and it's a lie.
It's not his fault that we have $16 trillion in debt.
Wow. Joining me now, Monica Crowley, radio talk show host, and Tara Dowdell, who's a Democratic political strategist who served as an aide to former New Jersey Governor James McGreevey. Both are Fox News contributors. Wow. Representative Ellison clearly came armed for a fight. He was invited on the program. He didn't have to say yes. He chose to go on, and it was clear what he was doing there. He was trying to pick a fight with Sean. You know, for what reason, I cannot speculate, but you tell me whether he came off looking good in that exchange, Monica, and why he's so upset.
Well, Congressman Ellison is a demagogue and a bully, and last night with Sean, he was particularly rude and obnoxious. This is nothing new for this congressman. He's behaved this way before on this network and in other places. He clearly has an agenda. So in addition to being a demagogue and a bully, Megyn, he's also a committed and militant leftist. So when he goes up against somebody who challenges his leftist views and his leftist agenda, i.e. out-of-control government spending, i.e. $6 trillion in debt just over the last four and a half years, he goes right for the jugular, and he attacks with emotion, and he attacks with demagoguery, and this is how he behaves. Is it befitting of a U.S. congressman to behave this way? Absolutely not, but this is who he is.
Tara, the thing that jumped out at me was he was so upset, in part, with Sean's assertion that President Obama came up with the sequester. Now, that comes from Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. Bob Woodward wrote a book on this. It was granted an all-access pass to the White House and said it was President Obama's idea. Keith Ellison denied that. But we don't have to, it's not a he said, because Jay Carney, President Obama's spokesman, went on special report with Bret Baier last week and said this.
What I will concede is that we were looking, and the Republicans were looking, for a trigger around which to build the mechanism to get us out of default possibility. Right. And that sequester was one of the ideas put forward, yes, by the president's team.
So why are we arguing about whether this came from the White House or not?
Well, I think that I think what Rep. Ellison, and again, I don't speak for Rep. Ellison, but I think what he was doing was he was pointing out that it's not solely the president who was responsible. The Budget Control Act does come out of Congress, and Congress is John Boehner and the House Republicans. They control Congress. So to say that this was solely on the shoulders of the president is just not true. And also the president agreeing to or putting the sequester on the table was under duress. The Republicans would not. It was under duress. It was under duress. The Republicans were not willing to compromise in any kind of meaningful way to avoid having a government shutdown, to avoid having us go over the cliff. And so what the president did was propose this as part of many things. But my issue is
the Republicans made him propose it, and then they made him sign it.
Right. They held a gun to his head to come up with the sequester idea in the first place. And actually to say that the Republicans weren't willing to compromise, John Boehner and the Republicans during that debt ceiling debate proposed about $800 billion in new revenue. Okay? The president agreed to it, then he pulled the rug out at the last minute. So the entire thing collapsed, and we got to the sequester in the first place because the president wasn't willing to agree to it.
Listen, the Republicans have plenty of blame when it comes to the sequester. They both... it doesn't. Remember Capitol Hill, how the bill becomes the law? Schoolhouse Rock. That's what I was looking for. Congress has to pass it, and then the president has to sign it. So the Republicans are guilty too. But President Obama is also guilty. And for a U.S. Congressman to go on Hannity's show, a national broadcast, and tell the American people he has no responsibility, that the president, it wasn't his idea and he doesn't have, is false.
Well, I think what he was trying to communicate, and clearly he was upset, and I want to say this, I think he was voicing the frustration that many Democrats have, that the GOP has been extraordinarily unfair to President Obama. And to your point, the president proposed the grand bargain. The grand bargain was $4 trillion in deficit reduction, $4 trillion. The Republicans did not take that deal. That is on record, that's verifiable, that's fact. After the 2010 elections, Monica, remember, the president compromised with the Republicans on the Bush tax cuts, despite having campaigned against them, despite having his base be upset with him over it. He has compromised with the Republicans time and time again. The sequester,
he's upset with the way the Republicans are treating him. They're upset with the way he's treating them. They think he's a bully and doesn't listen to them. Okay, so I understand there's partisan.
But a bully compromised with him on the tax cuts.
I understand
that's not a bully.
Well, I understand that there's partisan divide. I think everybody understands that in Washington. But you tell me, because you look at this behavior of a U.S. congressman.
Yeah.
And you know, you are. I'm rubber, you're glue. And he initiated that. He was the one pushing that. And I ask you whether this is the kind of exchange that leads people to say, I cannot stand politicians. I don't want to watch Washington. I don't want anything to do with Washington. And they have, what, a 9% approval rating in the Congress.
Right. And I want to know who that 9% is who actually approve of Congress. It is this kind of behavior, Megan, that I think reinforces the negative image about Congress, but also about politicians in general. Look, what Keith Ellison didn't say last night was that the Republican House actually passed 2 bills to avoid the sequester.
And the president said he would veto them.
Redo those cuts, redo those cuts in a more thoughtful, rational, responsible way. President threatened veto, it goes over to the Senate, and Harry Reid killed the bill. You didn't hear that from Congressman Ellison last night. There is not truth coming from the other side, and I think that that's why conservatives and Republicans have a lot of frustration.
Both sides say that there isn't truth coming from the other side. That's Tara's point. But here's what I see when I see that exchange. I think, this guy, do we trust this guy to negotiate with the Republicans? Do we think he can sit down with the Republicans and could strike a deal on this? And I'm sure there's some obstinate Republican on the other side who is also going to give him a tough time. You know, but it's just the turnoff. Like, these are our elected representatives. These are the people we trust to get something done for us.
Well, I think the bottom line here is what people really want to know is why what is up with the sequester. I think what people really want is for the sequester not to move forward, and I think that's what the conversation needs to be about. If this sequester moves forward, the estimates are that 750,000.
You're going into talking points.
No, I'm not going into.
Speak to my point.
I'm speaking to your point.
They can get the talking points online.
But this is not talking points. This is
Speak to my point. How are we supposed to trust our representatives to get anything done for us when this is the attitude? Did you hear the way he was talking about the Republicans? He was so
but that happens on both
disgusted that Hannity might be a Republican. Hannity's trying to make the point, I'm not a Republican, I'm conservative.
No, he was disgusted with what he felt. That again, I don't speak for him. He was disgusted because he's voiced, like I said, he is voicing the concerns of many Democrats. Many Democrats feel that President Obama has been subjected to a level of disrespect and obstructionism that has been unseen. And if you look at from whether it be judicial nominations to Senate appointments, all these
judicial nominations,
yes,
that's unseen.
No, yes,
did you pay attention during the Bush presidency to the judicial nominations?
The Democrats, much to my chagrin, have backed Bush on many of his policies. Some of which it backed him on the Iraq War, which was just wrong. So
I'm just saying, judicial nominations. There's a reason the Republicans almost killed the filibuster when they had control.
62% of Americans feel that the Republican Party is out of touch.
First of all, President Obama and the Democrats had massive congressional majorities in his first 2 years. So let's get off the obstructionist point. After after that,
It's true.
when the Republicans got control of the House, the Republicans have done nothing but compromise. They tried to compromise on the debt ceiling.
They have shut down a lot of
compromised
President
on the
Obama's
fiscal cliff.
agenda, a lot of his agenda.
They gave President Obama the tax hike he wanted. Where is the balance coming from the president? He says he wants a balanced approach. Where
They didn't give him the tax hike he wanted. The tax hike was going into effect whether they signed on to it or not.
They could have blocked that. They gave it to him. They gave it to him. He
the president,
had
the president has a plan on the table right now to avoid the sequester. It involves closing tax loopholes.
I gotta go.
ExxonMobil
More tax
is the most profitable country in the world. Why do they need special tax breaks?
Great having you both here. This was heated but civil. They could take a lesson.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right on.
All right, ladies. Thank you.
Thanks.